I wanted to create this video to cover the nuances of working with SharePoint and Bluebeam. What you see on the screen is a SharePoint site, and within the SharePoint site, within the site contents, there is a folder, a deliverables working folder, and that is the location where we want to get to in Bluebeam. We want to be able to upload and download directly from that location. So let's discuss how to do that. The way it works is basically you start with the home site in SharePoint. And so I'm going to take that home site, that URL, and I'm going to copy that URL. So I'll copy that here, and then we're going to go and we're going to talk a little bit about Bluebeam. One thing to note in Bluebeam is that there's two types of authentication for SharePoint. There's the legacy authentication and then what's called modern authentication. So when you're working with legacy authentication, you don't really need to do anything special. It just works straight from Bluebeam. But when you're working with modern authentication, what you need is you need to install an additional add-in into the SharePoint site. So if I come here to add-ins and look at the apps, you'll see that there is the Bluebeam Review SharePoint extension that has been added. That's a whole nother video and a few hours of work to get that installed as a SharePoint administrator. But just know that if you're getting error messages about logging in and you know that you're using the Office 365 modern authentication on your SharePoint site, you have to have this app loaded or it's not going to work. So having said that, we're going to deal really here in this video with the legacy authentication. Coming back to my site, you see I took the home screen and from that home screen I copied that URL. I'm going to come in here and now let's talk about what we need to do in Bluebeam. So one of the first things we need to do is we need to add this menu right here. This is the document management menu. You see it's this management menu right here. It contains all my different SharePoint sites, and so I can have as many as I want, as well as access into the Bluebeam Studio project if I wanted to access it from here. I have a little open and save as and log in and out. So that's one thing that needs to be done. And then what else needs to be done is here in preferences, you need to go into preferences and then go into the interface and come down here. And we're going to then add from here, instead of adding project-wise or studio project connections, we're going to add SharePoint connections in here. There's a plus button right here. If I click the plus button, it's going to default to project-wise. We're going to switch that to SharePoint. And then in here, it's going to be asking me for my information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by just putting in that home URL. So again, that is the home link URL that I copied from here. I just copied the entire URL. I'm going to take that, I'm going to paste it in here. Site display name, I'm going to plug in that information, although that's not needed. If you leave it blank, it won't make a difference. Default library, I'm going to leave that blank for now. And then I'm going to turn on the legacy authentication. So when I'm turning on the legacy authentication, what that means is it's as if I'm logging into the site directly through Bluebeam. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my information. I'm also going to check this box to check out on open from hyperlinks. I'm not entirely sure what that does, but I was told to check it, so I'm turning it on. Anyways, you'll notice the default library is blank, and you'll notice the site is just that home screen here that I put in. So now I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to come to this site, and I'm going to try to log in to this site. And you'll see when I tried to log in to this site, I got an error message. Please verify the site URL. The reason I got that error message, and the way that I always do this when I set these up, is because somewhere within this URL is the correct connection. but I don't have it yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to basically work my way back through these URL extensions here. So I'm going to just go work my way back to site pages and hit OK. And then I'm going to try and log in again. I get that same error message again. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go ahead and come back here again and go back and get rid of site pages. And then I'm going to hit OK, and I'll try and log in. And you'll see now when I did that, it shows me that it did indeed log in when I did it that way. So that's always the way I've always done it. I've always just put in the entire path and then just backed my way through the path until I get to the right location where it hits something where it seems to like. So that is how I have always done it. Now that I can confirm that I have logged in here, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. But before I do, I want to point out one more thing. Notice that in here, and that's if I want to come back to this and make some changes here, I have to log out first. So if I come here and I double click on this, I can double click on this all day long and nothing's going to happen. I have to log out and then I double click and then I have the options. So that's an important thing to note. It trips you up as you're working. And you'll notice again, this default library is empty. We'll come back to that in just a minute. So if you need to come back and make changes here, you're going to need to log out and log back in. So you can see now I'm logged back in. I hit OK. And now I see that SharePoint site that I set up right here. And I can see that I'm logged in. And I can go ahead and click to choose that site and then go ahead and choose the open file button. And when I do, what it does is it provides me a link into the SharePoint site. So you'll see that this SharePoint library has all these folders. And if I look at the folders in SharePoint that are listed, it's kind of similar to the site contents here. Some of them are listed in here. So a lot of these are mimicked here in these folders right here. So now that I know that, I know that I want to go into this DB deliverables folder, right? That was the folder that I had showed earlier, that the deliverables working folder that I had shown earlier. And I confirm that I want to go into that folder because I put a test document in there. And if I come in here and I open that folder, you'll see that if I change this to be all the files, I can see my test document. So if you are using a test document, make sure you understand that it has to be a PDF for it to appear by default. If not, you want to change this to all files. Anyways, so I know exactly where I need to go. I need to go into this DB deliverables folder, right? So I'm going to copy that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here to my preferences and I'm going to come back to my SharePoint site. I got to make sure it's the right one, which is this last one here. I'm going to log out. And now that I'm logged out, I'm going to double click and then I'm going to put this as my default library, this DB deliverables folder. So what I like to do is, again, I like to kind of go into the site first, figure out the folder that I need to be in, test it, and then once I've tested it, then I put the default library folder in here. It's like working in small steps because this has a number of ways that things can go wrong. So you have to kind of take it one little step at a time and work your way through before you make sure you have everything perfect. So I now have this as my default library. I'll hit OK. I'll go ahead and log back in. And then now coming in here, when I hit the open button for this site, it's going to open directly into that DB deliverables folder. So I can still click the up arrow or the back arrow and I can click into all the folders. But for me, where I'm really wanting to go here to find my files is here. And so at this point, really what you're doing is you are able to open just like you're opening from the C drive You can check out as well from SharePoint to have access to edit the file. But the idea here is that instead of having to go to SharePoint, download the file, and then go to open the file from your C drive, you just open directly from the site in SharePoint. You can check it out. You can open up the file, and then once you have it open, add it to a session or whatever else you want to do to edit the file. So that basically covers working from SharePoint into Bluebeam. Thank you.